Being recorded. So I see that there's people joining since the 6 of us, plus the numbers are going up.
Oh,
Welcome, everybody. We'll get rolling in just a few moments as people are coming in. Thank you for taking time out of your evening, and hopefully this was more convenient than getting out in the rain. We'll be doing introductions and giving you a bit of an orientation once we start. So I see it's been at 15 participants for a few seconds. We'll just wait a little longer to see if people are joining the next minute. Okay. Well, since the introduction takes a little bit of time, we have lots to show you tonight, and I think Chris is going to start off with a bit of introduction.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, Jeff, and good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Bapp, the Director of the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Department. I want to thank you, too, for pivoting with us as we didn't quite know the severity of the rain this evening and wanted to give people time to know to come to this Zoom link. So again, thank you for your understanding and appreciate it, and hope that you are safe and dry in a comfortable place watching this. Want to go ahead and again provide a quick introduction to the team that's here. Claudia Elia is with the Parks, Recreation, Community Services Department. She is our project manager for this. And again, Jeff is going to be talking about this in detail. Want to welcome Jenny Barnes, who is the acting library manager for the Youth and Teen Division. And Jenny, thank you so much for being here. I know the director, Derek Wolfgram, couldn't be here this evening. And then want to pass it over to Jeff Ferber, who's the principal at RRM Design Group, who's our lead landscape architect for this project. Jeff?
Thank you, Chris. Good evening, everybody. Our team of April, Jeff, and Yuki have been working with the city for quite some time now. And as Chris mentioned, because of the weather, and especially the severe weather on Monday, we decided to pivot to this meeting virtually, because we didn't know what was going to be happening in terms of travel. We've got a lot to show you, and it's coming out of a background of the work that's been going on for approximately, I'd say, a year now with our team. So we got slides to show you, and all of this is oriented towards the presentation of the 2 concept plans so that you're able to go to the link and do the survey, which was launched yesterday. And there's an interactive survey which will allow you to give an opinion on the alternatives through that online survey. So we're going to run you through some slides now. And if you have a question to ask, you can go to the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom menu there, which is probably next to the participants. The 2 people there, you can say Q&A. And if you click on that, you can put a question into the chat, and we will be monitoring the questions. And we may respond during the presentation, or we may wait and cover some of those depending on the question. Did that cover it pretty well, Yuki? Okay. All right. So in terms of context, you see the aerial photo here of downtown. And tonight's subject is really the downtown library park. But in the context of this overall connectivity and series of urban spaces and parks within the downtown, the city council established a goal of creating a network of great public open spaces. And that's the intent of each of these spaces, which includes a loop around part of the Redwood Creek, a connection through kind of a paseo behind City Hall, and then tonight's focus, the downtown library park. Just in terms of orientation, you can see the overview of downtown. And we put this slide in here in case there happened to be anybody visiting from a neighboring community and you're unfamiliar with the location of the downtown library. Here we have an aerial shot of the site. And for the purposes of our study, we're really studying all the property around the library. The park itself is identified as the Lot A parking lot and the Rosselli Garden, which is to the side and sort of behind the library, as well as the space in front of the library on Middlefield. You can see, just in terms of context, you have Jefferson Avenue, Middlefield, Main Street, and Pennsylvania Avenue is the bordering context. Couple of shots. The next several slides are just to remind you of what the existing conditions are behind and next to the library here. And then followed by the front of the library and the connection between Lot A and moving through that pinch point to the back of the library. The Lot A parking lot, of course. And then some shots of the front of the library and then looking across the street to the connection to the space between the city hall and the housing and the restaurants. This is a bit of a technical drawing, and this is intended to show you some of the constraints. A bit of a reminder that Redwood Creek runs underneath the site, in between the residential to the east. And then we've got the pinch point shown in the photograph, and the creek runs right under that landscape area that you're seeing there as a culvert. Okay. This slide is just to identify additional goals. That one of the major things we're trying to do is to make a better visual connection as well as a physical connection between Middlefield and the front of the site and going between that pinch point to the back of the library to make it feel safe and friendly so that people want to go to the back end of the park. Okay. We have been doing a lot of community engagement, and this is just a list of bullet points going back to last March. It's been very hands-on. There's been door-to-door outreach. There's been connections to community events, workshops, presentations to various commissions and boards. And tonight is that next stage in the series. All right. So just briefly, the next couple slides show kind of the pieces of public input that led into the concepts you're going to see tonight. One was the first sort of information gathering workshop that we did in the library, and we got lots of great input and ideas from members of the community that came to that March event. And then after that, we did an online survey, had photographs and questions. People were able to ask additional questions. We processed all those, and we had almost 1,200 participants. And we took all that information, and this next slide shows that we got together and we looked at all those data points, and we did what's called a design charrette, and we did a bunch of alternatives for how do we reflect all of the community input into the concepts. And this diagram really shows that between the survey, the site analysis, talking to stakeholders, which included some business owners, looking at the feasibility study, which was adopted by the City Council in 2018. And that study was what said there's going to be a park here. It was direction from the City Council. And then through all the community and output, we put that together and generate the concepts. So what you're going to see in the plans, and this is going to be the transition to April, we have this list on the left, which is everything that came out of the community process. The list on the right is a lot of the kinds of things our firm is, we specialize in park master planning and design, and we design parks all over the state. And these are the kinds of things you would typically see in any park anyway. So these are all the things you're going to see reflected in the two concepts we're presenting tonight.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to go ahead and transition into reviewing the plans with you. So from all those inputs and the analysis, we developed the two preliminary alternatives for a way of looking at possibilities in the park and having an opportunity to vet and think about what we want in the final preferred plan. On screen, you can see we have alternative A on the left and alternative B on the right. I'm going to zoom in on each of these and walk you through them. First, with alternative A, just wanted to orient you before we actually zoom all the way in. The library building right here in to the left on screen is the center of the park, and then the park wraps around that building. We have a community green and gathering area at the front on Middlefield, and also a plaza along that Middlefield side. On the back of the park, where we currently have Roselli Garden, we have library programming and a play area. In alternative A, the item that distinguishes this plan from the other is that it's a very large play area. Then with alternative B, you'll see it's very similar plan. We have community gathering green area along Middlefield and the plaza. And then as we shift to the back, we still have the library programming. The play area is smaller than an alternative A. And we have a few other elements going on. So I'll go ahead and dive into those. Give me a second while I cue that up. Great. Are you seeing alternative A plan? Okay. So now I'll zoom in on alternative A and walk us through the site. I'm going to start along Middlefield at Main in that community gathering area and zoom in to that space. This space is designed with a rectangular community green in the center, and adjacent to that community green, we have a permanent stage feature and a splash pad shown right here. At the corner of Main and Middlefield, we have an entry arch and a game tables plaza, and then a public restroom here. Along Middlefield, we have this tree-lined walking loop, which you're going to see more of throughout the plans. And we have several seating nodes and these swings as well. I'm going to zoom into some of the inspiration images so you can get a sense of what these spaces may look like. These photos we use to help convey a sense of the inspiration. The design will be specific to this project. So here we have an idea of what those swings may look like and the seating nodes area. Passing along, we can see an entry arch, the game tables plaza. In this plan, we have a public restroom and splash pad. I need to zoom in any closer. Okay, thank you. I'm going to zoom out and travel through the plan down to this area and zoom in on these photos.
April, when you're talking about the water related issues, you could also touch on the flexible use and how they can be, the spaces still function even when there's not water on, for instance, in a drought situation.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff, for pointing that out. For example, at the splash pad area here, a splash pad can be a flat hardscaped area that has water jets. But in times of drought, if there's concern about water consumption, the jets can be turned off and the hardscape can be patterned and beautiful so that it isn't just this leftover unused space. The particular design of the splash pad does include a seat wall as well. So we would be able to use this space if it's not used as a splash pad for any reason. And also in the case of events that may happen at the permanent stage and on the community green, that would be another reason that the splash pad may be turned off. There's some sort of community gathering happening. Along this edge here, at the back of the community gathering area, we have stations, these one-sided tables that could be used for picnicking, could also be workstations and study stations. And let's now, a couple more photos here. Let me zoom in. We can see here a stage, inspiration image of a stage with a lawn, as well as this stage right here that is in plan view. It's a very colorful stage platform that can also be an attractive space for people to gather when a performance is not underway.
April, can I add, while you're on the image with the grass there with the community gathering?
Yes.
And forgive me if I missed you covering this, but it's common in our work as park designers that we hear folks in the communities we work for questions about what is the appropriateness of grass during a drought in California, since the drought's been so severe. And what we're finding is that there's more and more restrictions and less opportunities for people in high density housing, even people in single family residential, where lawns are being removed and parks are sort of the community backyard and a place where communities are spending that resource and having lawn in spaces where everybody could use them. So even though there is significant drought in California, as we all know, it's having grass where more people can use it as opposed to everybody having their own grass. Thanks, April.
Thanks, Jeff. Now, as Jeff mentioned, right here in this location of the site where we have the library building and the edge of the property coming along, there's a bit of a pinch point through here. So what this plan is doing is we're looking at ways to open up visibility through to the back of this property, as well as planning a sequence of features to help showcase and show people that there is activity happening and features to enjoy in the back of the park. So you'll see there's this sequencing here where we've opened up the views in this alternative by restricting the tables and the vegetation to being either low or off to the side. And then in this area right in here, we have a play sculpture seating area. And we from there transition into a library programming area and play. I'm now going to zoom in on all of this in this back area, and we can take a look at what's happening. So first, as we come around the library building, there's a smaller lawn area that its purpose is to help provide flexible space for the outdoor classroom. So we can imagine that in this space, there may be story times happening. There's a seat wall. There's an ADA accessible surface so people can actually access this space. There's also a lawn area. So as that group may grow in size, there's some flexibility. As we travel around the curve here, back here we have a makerspace for library programming. The library has a very strong makerspace program going on interior of the building, and we would like to provide programming for makerspace and the exterior. So this right in here has a covered trellis with an outdoor makerspace area. And as we travel through, we can see all of this is for play in this area. Again, in this alternative, we're looking at the larger play area. We really want to hear from the public. The purposes of alternatives, of course, is to look at two different options. That gives the public an opportunity to weigh in and say, hey, I like this idea, or I like, this idea over in the other alternative. So as you participate in this survey, you'll see a series of questions that ask you, which do you prefer? One of those, for example, is the large play area. Alternative A has very large play area. Alternative B has a smaller play area, but other features. So looking at that play, we have a play mound envisioned right here, where we can have play scrambles, which are where children climb up a hillside, as well as slides. And that is happening in this vicinity. We also have imagined a water play area. Again, that would harken back to the creek that is flowing beneath the park in this location. And we also have envisioned nature play in this corner. In this area, we have envisioned a disc swing and benches and tables, picnic tables. I'm going to zoom in on some of those photos so you can get a sense of what those play experiences may be like. Starting with the play sculpture and seating that is proposed in the narrow space within the transition zone. There's an outdoor classroom proposed adjacent that. So the seating for that could be like this custom bench here. Play scramble would be similar to what's shown here with the rubber. There's a lot of different materials that can be used for play scramble, but the idea of having a place for children to scramble up a hill, and then also that play space that hill can become for either water play or other sort of imaginative play opportunities. Another photo of a child with a water play feature. Some nature play where we can incorporate natural materials such as logs and wood chips and create a play space using those materials.
I think what all of these images are showing is that as compared to today, if you were to go, say, tomorrow or this weekend and look at this space, it's extremely passive. It has the trees and the lawn and some parking, and this would sort of transform the space into a highly active area where families, children, seniors could be on any given day of the week. And it really is sort of taken back by the community in terms of being usable. And maybe it's a good time for us to mention that as part of this process, Claudia had an arborist go out and all the trees have been evaluated on the site. And that information is provided for us so that we are able to make decisions about which trees are healthy, which trees might be in decline as we're doing the planning.
So that's an overview of this play area. A couple other features along here. We have that walking loop coming through the site here. It would travel up this way. I'll go into more detail on the walking loop later. I just wanted to mention that. Again, the trellis area of the makerspace. I'm going to go ahead and, one more thing, an accessible ADA drop-off for the library location right here along this edge. Now I'll shift through to the plaza area of the library. I'll take us out front along Middlefield Road. And a couple features in here we want to point out. We have a number of tables. Right now, this area functions really well with the umbrella tables that are in place, and we can envision adding to that and embellishing that. So we have proposed some umbrella tables, also some two-top tables in here. One of the fun features, though, right at the front of the library here is we took a look at the structure of the building and looked for opportunities to open up the building to the park in two locations. So one was that outdoor maker space at the backside. We would actually be providing a door that people could travel from both the inside of the library to the park and vice versa. Another spot is right here at the work study veranda where the front of the library could be converted. So we could provide this veranda right in here where we could have a bar seating that people could be access from the library, from the fireplace room, and come out onto the veranda and perhaps to read a book or study. Then also over here, we have this bosque, which is a small grove. Those of you who are familiar with the site know that we have Lot C parking lot right here. So this becomes a main access point into the library from public parking. And we have envisioned here adding a few more trees along this edge and also adding in these pebble seating just to provide small moments for people to stop and rest. Couple more things before we move on to the other plan. Right here, we have envisioned an expanded crosswalk looking at the circulation and carrying through that point where people can access from the back of the park all the way through and carry on through to the City Hall Plaza. So let me just zoom out. We'll look at alternative A all together, and then I'll switch to B. So pointing out that walking loop piece right through here and on. Great, let me move over to alternative B.
And April, as you go to alternative B, maybe when you start to use your cursor, maybe verbally say where it is, and as you start to move it.
Okay. Wait a second, it's loading.
There was one question and I responded to the chat. So if you have a question, certainly we'll try to answer if it's a simple one as we're going. Other questions we may wait and elaborate on, and I'll answer those live.
So here we go with alternative B. Reminder, it's similar layout as A, and the distinctions are in some of those features and details that we'll dive into. We have the community gathering area in the front along Middlefield, at Middlefield, Main. We have the plaza area out in front of the library on Middlefield. And in the back, we have a mix of library programming envisioned, as well as play and some picnic opportunities. I'm going to walk in the same sequence around. So we're going to start in at the community green and gathering area along Middlefield and Main. So right here, in this design, we have envisioned the community green as an oval shape. And along this edge here, you'll also see there's that walking loop that comes around the park. The entry at the corner has an arch similar to alternative A. In this design, at that corner location, there's a water fountain, a water feature proposed. We have a public restroom proposed, as well as a large trellis area, both here and along the back edge of the community gathering area. This location would have a shaded seating area, and then this is more for circulation, shaded circulation. This concept also proposes seating nodes along this edge adjacent the sidewalk on Middlefield. Zooming in on a couple of those features right here. You'll recall in the last plan, let me zoom out real fast. I'm pointing at the temporary stage area here. In the last plan, we had a permanent stage proposed. This alternative looks at doing a temporary stage location. So what that would be a hardscaped area that's large enough to bring in a temporary stage setup for different events. So when the stage, when there's not a community event that requires staging or has a performance, this hardscaped area could be this cool misting plaza. And one of the fun features that we have, I'm going to zoom in on this photo, is where you can actually put a pattern in the concrete. So when the misting feature is under operation, the pattern gets revealed as the concrete gets wet, saturated from the misters. So in this
April, can we pause on that image?
Mm-hmm.
There's two questions that are in the chat, and I think it's a good time to address one of them. The one on the walking loop, we will come to that shortly when we're on that section. But there's a question about art, and the person says that they saw that it was highly popular in the survey and reflected in the survey, and that's true. Where is it in the plan? And the reason I stopped, April, on this image is there's clearly a couple different ways that community art could be reflected in the project. One is like a call, like an RFP for artists for a particular piece. Redwood City has some beautiful art in their parks, and Claudia might be able to remind me that amazing bench and what park that is.
Jardín de Niños.
Just an amazing piece of public art. So it could be like that, incorporated directly through a collaboration during the more final design, or it could be like this, sort of a little more subtle into the actual fabric of the design, the paving, the trellises, other features within the park. So I don't know if Claudia and Chris want to say anything more about public art, since that's something you guys do on a regular basis.
No, I appreciate it, Jeff. Yeah, I think that's a really important point, and we definitely look at how we integrate art into our park project. So I think once we have a better understanding what features people want, and just what Jeff mentioned, we can look at then how to creatively make those and make them artistic. Also on some walls too, we can look at some mural locations. That's always important. Certainly if there's certain plinths or areas where we could put some art, we'll definitely look at that in the final plan, but that's a special note, and I appreciate that person bringing that up. Thank you.
I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and we'll go look at the inspiration images in this area, and then travel on to the next area. Here's a photo of, again, the entry arch area, as well as seating nodes along that edge. Go in over here. The fountain, for example, or the water feature could be another opportunity for incorporating artwork. Here's 2 inspiration photos of water features. These can take a number of shapes and designs. In here, you see the shaded seating area, and this could be similar to the veranda where we have the bar style seating. The public restroom in this design and this image inspiration is a little more conventional building. The other one had a more contemporary feel to it. Community green, an image of that. Again, just a photo here to give a sense of that shaded walkway. And I'm going to zoom out and move to the Roselli Garden area. So as we come along right through here, I'm pointing to the transition point where the park narrows between the library building and the edge of the parcel. We have a number of existing redwoods along this edge, and this alternative looks at preserving those and providing a walking loop to the inside, or walking path to the inside of that, of those redwood trees. We have a circulation that flows around the play areas and then wraps back and comes into the library makerspace. Again, makerspace is being proposed in both plans and in the same location. A distinction between the two is the size of the makerspace. And again, the reason it's proposed in this location is to provide that direct access to the library building.
April, can you cover, there's a question about, will the outdoor makerspace area have power available? And Claudia is nodding yes.
Thank you, Claudia.
Yes, the idea for the makerspace, in fact, Sarah, Jenny and I spoke about that a little today, in terms of how the makerspace would be. And April did talk about how there's the interior space for the makerspace. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be bringing out what we can that's messier, like carpentry, that kind of thing, where it's very noisy and it's messy. So the idea is for that to be outside. So it would probably have a sink of some sort, or multiple, and electric, and then tabletops, places where we could put tools away, as well as just work surfaces. And I think there's going to be some sort of storage shed associated with that as well.
And for those who don't know, the makerspace is, the interior makerspace is on that side of the building, very close to that proposed space. So it makes sense to have an external space within 10, 20 feet of the internal.
Thank you, Claudia and Jenny. Zoom in this area with the community green and the makerspace. So right here we have a smaller lawn area that again can function as an overflow for any library programming. In this design, there is a trellis that wraps that community green with a seat wall. Again, so just for some shaded seating. Both plans give a lot of thought about places of refuge for people when it is hot. A little bit hard to imagine right now with the weather, but many times of the year where it's quite warm, we were looking at opportunities for providing both shade and also cooling features such as the fountain or the misters or the splash pad. So you'll see that in both plans. In this area adjacent to community green, we have an outdoor picnic area proposed, and adjacent that in this plan, a little different than the last one, at the point along Pennsylvania Avenue, we have a pull-through area and accessible ADA parking, as well as an area that along this curb that food trucks could pull up to. So the idea here is that we could have the food trucks for special occasions or different events, and that would be adjacent this dining area that is in this Roselli Garden area. Just adjacent to that, we have this covered area where we have a games plaza and a teen hangout space. We'll look at a couple inspiration photos. There's also a cool play climber in that zone. Both plans are looking for opportunities to find spaces for all the generations and all ages, including teenagers. We have, let's look at the play now. We have two areas for play that would be more targeted towards the children's set, both young children through age 12, adjacent to that teen area. We have a play area right here under the existing redwoods, as well as a piece here that are connected by this walking path here. On this side, we have play scramble and hill area. And then in this side, we have nature play envisioned. Let me zoom in on some of the photos. You'll see some of the same imagery. Play scramble features right here, I'm pointing out with the cursor, as well as the natural materials, nature play, log scramble. Down here in this spot along this walking path along the back edge, we have a couple nodes envisioned. So we've got these seating nodes that could be interpretive elements. This could be used, we could have artwork in these spots, but we also could have interpretive elements that perhaps daylight a story we want to share about the park. Maybe this is an opportunity to talk about the creek that runs through the site. This path right here, we have this cool material that glows at nighttime. Right in here, you can see that picture. And one of those nodes is right here with the bronze sculptures. Again, that would be another opportunity for artwork.
April, I'm going to pause for a second here. There's a couple of good questions that I think it's appropriate to when we're back in this zone. And I'm not avoiding the walking loop question because there's an exhibit that's going to make it easier for us to explain the walking loop coming up. But there is a question about, and I'm just going to read it. It says, currently behind the library, it can be a space for banditry, which I'm assuming means, perhaps illegal activity. What security will there be for families and adolescents? For example, students waiting for their parents in the area? That's a really good question. And we, of course, don't have a sort of a magic wand, but in our profession, what we try to do, and what April was showing with the features, is try to make the space the kind of area where there's activity every day, Monday, 7 days a week. And the idea of the maker space where you could have seniors on a weekday working back there. You could have small children who are preschool age any day of the week with their parents in a really creative playground. You could have teens after school. There will be lighting. The idea of the walking loop and the circulation is to connect over to Maple, which eventually will be more pedestrian oriented, and having it feel safe, and so that more people who live in the adjacent housing will be walking through there back and forth to school and to work and to restaurants. And to have it as a spot where it just wouldn't be a good place for someone to be who is doing something that's not lawful. So that's an overview of what we're trying to do. But I like the way you put the question, so we'll spend a little bit more time studying that.
May I add a quick
Yes.
point to that? I think another issue right now with the way the library and the park are configured is that there is no external access to the park on that side of the building. And so it's pretty closed off, and there aren't eyes on that part of the library campus. So when we move forward with this, one idea is to add access to the park from the interior of the library, which will really activate the space too. And of course, the library will use the space more when we have that direct access.
Yes, the programming will be a huge advantage to that goal. There was also a question about the makerspace. It's really a good question, and I'm not sure I know the answer to it. And Claudia may want to say something, or Jenny, but about the noisiness of the makerspace and how that might be perceived by other users.
Right. Yes, that's an excellent question. And if you think about the reading area, the outdoor classroom, where there would be, story time, that sort of thing, obviously there's going to be programming that has to do and hours for certain things to occur. So ideally we wouldn't have, the noise from the tools and story time happening at the same time. So I think that concern would be taken care of by programming and hours and having schedules. Anything, is that right?
I agree. I think we would be mindful of course, not conflicting with our programming and doing things that would interfere with either experience. And it made me think too, that question, that it's an opportunity too for us to be really forthright about what's going to be happening. So maybe some opportunity for signage about programming so that the public are aware when things are going to be happening from the exterior of the building. So yeah, that's a good question, and did make me think about signage and being visually obvious about when things are going to be happening.
Yeah, I think we had on our list of programming a kiosk so that we could have a place where we could display both outside as well as inside the library about programming. There were two questions very similar about the walking loop, the path system, and whether or not bicycles, scooters, other than pedestrian would be allowed. And those are really smart questions. We actually don't know for sure exactly how these will come out. Generally speaking, these are likely to be pedestrian oriented because there's a lot going on and the park is not that big. So accommodating like a bike lane size or bike path size loop could be somewhat of a challenge. Graphically, we show those walkways running from Pennsylvania Avenue to the front. Those are sized currently to be pedestrian. We'll say a little bit more when we get to the walking loop exhibit and why it's incorporated.
Great. I'll zoom in on a few more features here. I'm pointing right here at the teen hangout space, the covered area. There is a proposed play climber in this spot. I'll zoom in on that. Some of you may have seen this. This is a type of play climber that definitely serves younger people, but also it is pretty hard for adults to stay off of too. So it's sort of a good one for all ages. It appeals to teens. It gives them an opportunity to get up high and watch what's going on, and also sit together as a group. So that's one of the things that's envisioned in that space. I'm gonna zoom over here. We have a few more photos to look at before we move on to the plaza area in front of the library. Again, there's a game plaza, and we have, this could be an area where we have game tables. It could be chess tables. It could be ping pong. It could be large scale checkers like we were showing in this photo here. Dining area, you can see in this photo, it's pretty tiny on screen, so let me just zoom in a couple notches. A plaza area where we can have dining with umbrella tables, picnic tables. Right in here, that makerspace in this plan, we have envisioned a more contemporary cover, something that is a bit of a statement piece that could really harmonize nicely with the library building, but help define that space. And back here, community green, just an inspiration photo showing a smaller lawn area. And this photo here, it's serving to accommodate a large event, but it can be a space that is really flexible for the individual user, or maybe when there's some library programming going on. Let's go on to the area in front of the library building. So again, we currently have a lot of tables out in front of the library building, and we envision carrying that use forward and modifying that. In this design, it is, we have these two large shade trees envisioned that would flank the front of the building and help frame that out, but also provide shading for that space. And you can see here, there's a photo showing, these could be very large trees, very large statement trees that provide this very, this hardscape area, a lot of shade for the hardscape. In addition to that, we have umbrella tables envisioned, and of course, maintaining that access into the main entry of the building.
April, a note on the the large trees at the entrance, and in general, early on in the project, Claudia made us very aware of the warm summers in Redwood City. So shading and sort of passive cooling has been an objective.
So just a few more notes before we move on from this plan. Again, we have circulation coming from Lot C to the main entry of the library building, maintaining that access through to the crosswalk that goes on to connect to both the restaurants and businesses as well as City Hall. We have circulation around that community green coming through that narrow passage between the building and the edge of the parcel, and then circulating around the play area and the library programming and the outdoor picnic areas in the current Roselli Garden. One more note before we move on to the walking loop. I think I did mention this actually, a little bit of a repeat. So we do have the ADA parking in this on the back side of this design. I'm going to hit pause real fast and switch screens.
And then we will finally answer your question about the walking loop. Just sort of maybe a few comments about the walking loop in general and the importance of it. This project is, one of its goals is to connect green spaces and to connect community spaces in the downtown, all the way from the downtown area to the creek. And so Claudia has tasked us with looking for those opportunities. So Claudia, you want to say a couple words about the walking loop and what your objective is?
Sure. Well, when we met with the community at some of their community meetings, as well as when we got the responses back from the surveys, walking loop was pretty high up there. So we wanted to give folks an opportunity to have something that was off of the street, off the sidewalks, even though some of these do incorporate partly some sidewalk space. But so that was one objective, is to deliver what the community asked for. And then secondly, to really have the library campus feel like a park. We wanted to make it softer, greener, and provide lots of shade. So with the double row of trees along the entire campus, it does feel more park-like than having a library park. So it met both those objectives.
As far as the distance, April, I think you actually did calculate it perhaps, but I can't remember the figure. I think Claudia was guessing a quarter mile, but I
Yeah,
don't know.
that is the approximate distance on it. Yeah, great. So we are looking at the entire library campus on screen right now. And this is just a diagram to illustrate where that walking loop would go beyond the park area. So I'm pointing here at the downtown library park in front of the library building. That walking loop would pass along Middlefield Road. In this location, we imagine incorporating the sidewalk and widening the sidewalk, the existing sidewalk, in order to provide that loop around. As the design for the walking loop is worked out, we're looking at incorporating as wide a path as possible. There are a couple site constraints that may reduce it in a few places, but the objective, like you're saying, Claudia, is really to make this a generously comfortable loop that people can walk on. So we travel along Middlefield in front of the library building. And then as we travel towards Jefferson, again, we'd be a little constrained in this location to make it as wide as over on the downtown library park, because we are going to be passing around the existing parking here. And so we'll want to maintain as much parking as possible. And the loop will travel along this back edge of the lot B and right along this Jefferson area. If you're familiar with the site, this area, there's a hillside here. So Jefferson's at a different elevation than the parking lot. Unfortunately, there is space along outside the existing parking stalls where we can bring that walking loop right around. And then as it travels towards Pennsylvania Avenue on the railroad, it would then turn and come right at that back edge of Lot B and connect back to the downtown library park. And then that path would pass within the park along that parcel edge and pick up around the both the play areas and the community gathering area until it meets the sidewalk at Main Street and around to Middlefield.
I also want to mention, in terms of the spacing of the trees, that along the front of the library, as much as we want to keep the spacing uniform, there will be areas where we would space them farther apart to have visibility into the site.
April, before we go to the last slide, the next steps, and talk more about the survey, could we go to the slide that has the two colored plans side by side?
Yes.
I noticed that during the presentation, we had probably, I think, 5 people join us midway. And just to try to connect the dots for everybody. April went through both plans in detail, and you'll certainly notice that there were a lot of similarities, and that was intentional. We take all that information from the community input, including that survey with almost 1,200 responses. And the intent is not to have two completely different alternatives where it's like, why, how would you choose which one? The idea is to take the ideas the community wants to see and put them into a plan, and then study, are there different ways to approach it? And that's what the two plans do. They approach the same program, the same elements in slightly different ways. So it's intentional that they're not vastly different. But there are some differences, and I thought maybe we could quickly summarize them. Not stylistic and that sort of thing. And you'll see in the survey, a lot of the questions are sort of trade-offs. Would you rather see this or this? For example, would you like to see the teen kind of oriented family events kind of things near the front, which is in option A, closer to Main Street in the corner, as April's highlighting there, or in the back as part of more of a multi-generational space? And there's some benefits to that. So they are different. They're the same kinds of things in different places. You could easily take one specific idea, like a ping pong table, for instance, or a certain kind of climber, and you will see there are ways in the survey for you to choose the individual things you like, and we will get data from the community that way. And there will probably very likely be a blending of these two concepts into a preferred plan. And then you will have an opportunity down the road to see a preferred plan that is based on your input tonight and the input we get from the survey. We're expecting to get a very large response, not just you 33 folks that we really appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight, but hopefully hundreds and over 1,000 responses, what we're hoping for. We're doing some door-to-door work. There's a very significant effort over the next few weeks to get input. But that's one of the differences. You could, the whole idea of having like a food truck spot back there versus the option A, which it utilizes right up to Pennsylvania Avenue with a larger play space. One thing I did want to point out, and that's that in option A versus option B, as you go through the pinch point, option A removes those redwood trees that are at the front, and an option where April's showing there. And there's some benefits to that in terms of visual and physical connection. We're waiting for the arborist report on the health of those trees. In option B, it shows, you can see the graphic, it has those 4 redwoods. I think there are 4. And it still has some of the other features like the splash area, the place for a temporary stage, but it prioritizes the trees in that alternative. You'll see that question in the survey where you have an opportunity to give us your input on which is more important to you. April, I don't know if there's any, I thought those were a couple of key significant differences in the concepts. And
may I ask a question, Jeff? I think hopefully it'll help the attendees. Part of a current issue with the park is related to those trees. I think they do block visibility back into to the Roselli Garden. So how in alternative B how is visibility increased back into the back area of the park if the trees stay there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jenny. And I think it's not very apparent there, but we would look for some mitigation measures. For instance, pruning the trees up to some degree, maybe removing the understory shrubbery and having like preserving the trees. I think there's like a Magnolia solangianum or some beautiful tree there, but there's some kind of shrubbery under there where people can lay down, you can throw trash. So we might make some amendments, some mitigations to the planting without removing the major trees, would be the way we would try to do that. And that would improve some visual connectivity, not quite as the same way as in option A. Right. And that's why we're asking sort of that trade-off question in the survey. We really do need to know what the community thinks. We know the trees are important. We know that, Redwood City has got a fantastic kind of urban forest. It's not a matter of choosing to remove them because trees aren't fantastic and important, but it's trying to meet that goal of making it safer in the back, making the visual connection, and making it a place that people want to use every day.
And then I'd like to add also in the area, I think we have a picture actually that shows that sort of number of trees in the front. But you'll see that there are some palms right there. Yep. And they're actually in pretty poor shape. I don't know if you walk up to them, the trunks are pretty damaged and all that. So we would certainly remove those palms that are in bad shape, and then kind of, yep. And then I think there's like 5 or 6 redwoods that are just behind there. So, one option would be like Jeff said, is to raise the canopy from the bottom up to kind of open up visibility. Yep. And then we may decide to remove, one or a couple. I think, like I said, I think there's 6. And so we would reduce the number, but not necessarily remove all of them, keep the majority, especially all the healthy ones, and work our design around that. There's also, I'd like to point out, a grade change there. So that's something else that we have to consider when we look at both the stage and that misting area. There's the 2 different options on the alternatives. So whatever we do there, we do have to address the grading there as well as the drainage.
And then especially so if those trees remain, because we cannot easily change grade around existing trees without harming them.
We have a couple more questions. April, one question is there an outdoor classroom in both designs? So maybe if you go back to the 2 plan exhibit, if you could answer that question.
There is an area that library programming can happen in both. There isn't an outdoor classroom, so to speak, in both. And I'll show you the photo that might help distinguish that a little bit. In the 2 plans side by side, the one on the left has the outdoor classroom. I'm pointing to the area where the outdoor classroom is, and it's across from that smaller lawn area. That's an alternative A. In alternative B, it has a slightly larger lawn area with the shaded trellis that has a seat wall. So this one can be definitely an area for library programming. The distinction is it doesn't have that bench seating that encircles that like that small nook area. So let me go to the photo of that just so we can see it. I think it might be helpful. Give me a second though.
And then there's another question, which is really a good sort of kind of wrap-up question. It doesn't mean we won't take more questions, but the question is, would you want the kind of feedback where you all suggest liking one of the 2 designs, but with a feature from the other design, perhaps an option of a combo of the 2 designs? So that's a really great summary, thank you, of exactly what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to find out how do we take these 2 plans and move to a preferred plan. And you'll see in the survey that you'll have opportunities to kind of give us that feedback. April, since April's the author of the survey primarily, April and Claudia, is there a question where we ask about the 2 plans?
Yeah, the very final question.
Okay, very final question gives you that chance to say, I like A or I like B. But throughout the whole thing, you're going to be making lots of choices to help guide us to the outdoor classroom, the teen areas, the walking loop, the food truck, the makerspace, all that kind of stuff. You'll be guiding us, and then we'll landing it all together and then coming back to the community with a presentation of the preferred plan.
On screen, we have the 2 inspiration images that show 2 different styles of outdoor classrooms. And again, the outdoor classroom is just a slightly more formal space than like say a bench and lawn area. You can see that it could be something along the lines of what's shown on the photo in the left, where you're getting that concrete seat wall and there's a lawn area that is planted within the sitting area. So There's a small hardscape area that someone could be perhaps sitting at where they're perhaps doing a story time or something along those lines. The one on the right is a slightly more intimate setting, but it's similar in the sense that it's this curved bench where people can face each other, and they can also be facing somebody who might be speaking or presenting. So that's the idea of the classroom. In the other design, we have, again, just the lawn and the shaded trellis. So a feature that you'll be able to weigh in on when you do the survey. I'm going to pause sharing again for a minute here. Do we have other questions, or should I move to
we have two more, and one is Claudia's expertise.
Okay.
The question is, one of the community input comments was about drought tolerant plantings. Today, the library has bees and education around plants and benefits of bees. Can an educational garden be incorporated? Claudia?
Well, we definitely are going to do lots of planting around the park, the whole space. We haven't really targeted a specific location for a garden per se. I think it's just going to be lots of drought tolerant and beneficial insect type of plants throughout the space is what I'm hoping we can incorporate. So absolutely, focus on natives, a focus on drought tolerant plants. In terms of the educational component, I would want to work with the library and see, how they want to maybe incorporate things regarding bees, since I know that they do have the panels up on their roof. So I think it's a great opportunity and a great idea. So I'm certainly not opposed. We have had in the past a lot of vandalism to any of the signage that we've used, either for the plant names or interpretive signage. So that's something that we'll certainly take a look at and see if there's opportunities to incorporate that.
I was going to say that library staff, including me, would love to be educated on the types of plants and be able to incorporate that into outdoor programming. I think that would be really fun.
Yeah, and actually I spoke with Sarah today. She was showing me some of the collection of tools and crafts and things that they have in the makerspace. And one of them is gardening. So they have some gardening tools and all that. So we were talking about, a program where we're starting seeds. And we had talked about this for another project because parks would love, plants are very expensive. And we would love to have a program where there's some seed starting with some particular California natives and annuals. People, we could do the planting, the seed starting in the makerspace, and then people could take home their trays. They could take care of the plants, and then those plants that we grow, we could then plant in our parks. So we'd love to get some kind of programming in that regard. So there'd be some coordination and some cooperation between the library, parks, and the community.
Well, while we're waiting to see if there's going to be any more questions, April, can we go to the slide on the next steps and just talk a little bit about how to access the survey? And then I'd like to see if there's any questions from the attendees on how to access the survey with various devices, depending on the phone or computer you might have at home.
So the top bullet is actually the project website on the city's website. It's the web page for the project. So you can type that in if you'd like to go to that site. There is a link on that page that will take you to the survey. And the next bullet on the screen is the survey link. So you can either follow this link by typing in this survey, Zoho Public. I'll read it out to you all in just a second. Or the other option is if you have a smartphone, you can hold up your QR code reader and access the survey via that QR code. For those of you who may not have a QR code reader, I'll read out the survey link. It is https://survey survey ZOHOPUBLIC.com/ZS//GZ capital CS 41.
That was fun.
That was challenging.
So I wonder, April, just for clarification, are you saying that someone could hold up their phone, for instance, their iPhone, to the QR code on their computer screen here, and it will recognize it and take them to the survey?
Yes, you can. For iPhone users, I know that you can access that. Did you get the survey, Jenny? You can access that by bringing up your camera, and if you hover over, if you hold that up to it and hover over it, you will see a pop-up where it'll say Zoho Public. It'll read that whole link that I just was challenged by reading out. You can click that and it'll take you over. Some QR codes operate slightly differently, but it's a very similar a function where you can pull up in the QR code, hover over, actually hold your phone up to that icon, and it will pop up the link.
There were also a lot of postcards that went out. The information's on the postcard. I think it might be in the library, Jenny. Did we posted? So there's the QR code, is also the website. So I think it's going to be quite simple to get a hold of this.
Yeah, they're in the lobby, the posters and a QR code to be able to take the survey, or right in the front of the downtown library.
Claudia and Jenny, were we going to put the plans in the library? I can't remember for sure.
They are there
They are there. Okay.
in the lobby. Yep.
So if you want to go look at them, they're large, you can take a good look, study them a little more. You could tell your friends and neighbors about them, and then they could look at those and then go to the survey. Or you could do the survey right there in the library while you're looking at the larger plan. That could be kind of easy and fun to do that way. We're trying to make it as easy as possible. And we're hoping that all of you that attended today will share it with your neighbors. Survey deadline is a great question. Thank you. April?
Through the end of the month. So that'll be January 31st.
Yes. So yes, we really encourage you to share the link with your family and friends. The survey is also in Spanish. So up at the top of the page, you will see a tab. It's black and white, and you can choose the language.
I'll show you that right here.
If
So
you
I just opened the link here. Right here, you can click and access Spanish.
and April, can you mention the fact that if you click on Spanish, you're on Spanish to stay unless you refresh. So
That's right.
You can't go back and forth necessarily. So you need to pick one. But if you go to Spanish and you want to take it in English, you could refresh and go back and do it in English, or vice versa.
What do you mean if you got like partway through and wanted to change the
Oh,
language?
I think like I was playing with it. I did that. I just wanted to see, I don't speak Spanish, but I just wanted to see it in Spanish. And so I clicked on the link.
Yeah, you can click through. It's interesting though. This browser looks like it's giving me the option to go back. So it might be. Hold on.
You may have done
there
this
we go.
when I was looking at in the chat. I may have missed you saying this, but if you didn't, could you cover how you can enlarge the photos? Did you do that?
Oh, yeah, sure.
This is a really handy feature that April is going to show.
So you can click on the image. It'll zoom you in. At the bottom and on the right-hand side, you can see there are the bars where you could scroll around the image. So I'm just at the bottom of my window sliding that slider bar, and on the right-hand side. And then when I'm done looking at that, there's an X. Most browsers and on the phone, the X is going to be in the upper right. It can be a little bit different though for each browser. So just look around, that X will take you back out. You can click on the other image and look around. That same thing.
This is kind of handy if you aren't in the library looking at the large plan and you're on your phone, or you're doing it with a neighbor or friend and trying to show them. You can enlarge them, and it's a lot easier to see them.
And then, of course, if you add a desktop and you want to just toggle in and out on zooming, you can hit Control- or Control+, and it's a little bit smoother to zoom around if you want. A couple different
Okay,
ways.
well, I
to
can
use
tell
it.
that people are starting to drop off, which is understandable. On the very last thank you slide, it has Claudia's contact information. And Claudia is available 24 hours a day. She's not like the fire department. But if you had a follow-up question that somehow you really find that need, Claudia, how would you like that to happen?
Yeah, feel free to email me. You can call me. Yeah.
Great. Well, I don't see any more questions. We've covered all the material in the presentation as thoroughly as we could without putting anyone to sleep. And spread the word. And I guess next step after the end of the month, it'll take us a little while to process all of the information as a team. And then it takes a couple of months of like producing that next final alternative. So it'll be a little bit down the road in the spring, I would say, probably when we're able to put the word back out for an opportunity to see a preferred plan.
Mhm. Yes, well, thank you, RRM. That was fantastic. Thank you, Jenny, for attending, and thanks to everybody who took the time to join us tonight. We
Since the
appreciate all your input.
And Claudia, since the meeting was recorded
Mhm.
in April, what do we do with the recording?
We can put it on our website.
Yeah, we have a project page. We'll go ahead and list it there. It's a great idea.
Okay, Yuki, is there anything that we need to do in terms of saving it?
We already got that covered, Jeff.
Okay, we got that covered. I just remember once we lost some questions or something years ago, but
Yeah, I like, and make sure the questions and the answers are there too. And maybe if you answer it live, we can do a quick type up or something. Anyway, we'll work on that, and yeah, we'll get that online.
so that all preserved, Yuki, all the chats and the questions?
Yes, that should be in the cloud.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Cool.
in fact, the QR code on the postcard that was sent out for those of you in either downtown neighborhood or Stambaugh Heller, the QR code will take you right to the webpage.
Great.
Fantastic. Well, good night, everybody. Thank you for attending. And
Good
Good night,
Hello.
everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Excited about this.